Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Om Vishnu Padram, Sampradaya Kacharya, Ashtottamishan Shri Srimad His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Gatra Chimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Gaura Premananda, all glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gaura. Namo Vishnu Padram Krishna Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 13, verse number
8.
8. Nashishan Anubadnita.
Na Shishya Anubannita.
Kantanaiva Vyased Bahun.
Granthaneva Bhasyed Bahun.
Navyakam Upayunjita.
Navyakhyam Upayunjita.
Naramvan Arabet Kochit.
Narambhan Arabhet Kvachit.
Shishan Anubadnita.
Nashishyan Anubannita.
Grantanaiva Vyased Bahun.
Granthaneva Bhasyed Bahun.
Navyakam Upayunjita.
Navyakhyam Upayunjita.
Narabhan Arabet Kochit.
Narabhan Arabhet Kvachit.
Nashishan Anubadnita.
Nashishyan Anubannita.
Grantanaiva Vyased Bahun.
Granthaneva Bhasyed Bahun.
Navyakam Upayunjita.
Navyakhyam Upayunjita.
Naramban Arabet Kochit.
Narambhan Arabhet Kvachit. Nashishyan Anubannita.
Nashishan Anubadnita.
Granthaneva Bhasyed Bahun.
Grantanaiva Vyased Bahun.
Navyakhyam Upayunjita.
Navyakam Upayunjita.
Narambhan Arabhet Kvachit.
Naramban Arabet Kochit.
Nasishan Anubandita.
Nashishan Anubadnita.
Granthaneva Bhasyed Bahun.
Grantanaiva Vyased Bahun.
Navyakhyam Upayanjita.
Navyakyan Upayunjita.
Narambhan Arabhet Kvachit.
Naramban Arabet Kochit. Not. Shishan,
Shishyan
disciples. Anubadnita.
Anubannita.
One should induce for material benefit.
One should induce for material benefit.
Granthan,
Granthan.
unnecessary literature.
Unnecessary literature.
Na, not. Eva,
Eva.
certainly.
Certainly.
Abhyaset,
Abhyaset.
should try to understand or cultivate.
Should try to understand or cultivate.
Bahun,
Bahun.
many.
Many.
Na,
Na.
nor.
Nor.
Vyakyam,
Yakhyam.
discourses.
Discourses.
Upayunjita,
Upayunjita.
should make as a means
Should make as a means
of livelihood.
of livelihood.
Na,
Na.
nor.
Nor.
Aramban,
Arambhan.
unnecessary opulences.
Unnecessary opulences.
Arabet,
Arabhet.
should attempt to increase.
Should attempt to increase.
Kvachit,
Kvachit.
at any time.
At any time.
Translation: a sannyasi must not present allurements of material benefits to gather many disciples, nor should he unnecessarily read many books or give discourses as a means of livelihood. He must never attempt to increase material opulences unnecessarily. Repeat after me. A sannyasi must not present
Sannyasi must not present
allurements of material benefits
allurements of material benefit
to gather many disciples,
to gather many disciples,
nor should he unnecessarily read
nor should he unnecessarily read
many books or
Many books.
give discourses
many books or to give discourses
as a means of livelihood.
as a means of livelihood.
He must never attempt
You must never attempt
to increase material
to
opulences
increase material opulences
unnecessarily.
unnecessarily.
Prabhupada's purport. So-called swamis and yogis generally make many disciples by alluring them with material benefits. There are many so-called gurus who attract disciples by promising to cure their diseases or increase their material opulence by manufacturing gold. These are lucrative allurements for unintelligent men. A sannyasi is prohibited from making many disciples through such material allurements. Sannyasis sometimes indulge in material opulence by unnecessarily constructing many temples and monasteries, but actually such endeavors should be avoided. Temples and monasteries should be constructed for the preaching of spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness, not to provide free hotels for persons who are useful for neither material nor spiritual purposes. Temples and monasteries should be strictly off limits to worthless clubs of crazy men. In the Krishna consciousness movement, we welcome everyone who agrees at least to follow the movement's regulative principles: no illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating or gambling. In the temples and monasteries, gatherings of unnecessary, rejected, lazy fellows should be strictly disallowed. The temples and monasteries should be used exclusively by devotees who are serious about spiritual advancement in Krishna consciousness. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains the word aramban as meaning matadi vyaparan, which means attempting to instruct temples and monasteries. The first business of the sannyasi is to preach Krishna consciousness, but if by the grace of Krishna facilities are available, then he may construct temples and monasteries to give shelter to the serious students of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, such temples and monasteries are not needed. Om Gantavinandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Sam Jivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parhijana Sehitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Radhita Shri Kanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakapatrubhyascha Pasindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes, a sannyasi must not present allurements of material benefits to gather many disciples. And that's it goes completely opposite to everything we understand about pure devotional services. There is no material opulence that's worth having. What we consider is like we or anyone in the world in a good position with plenty of money, with enough money for house and everything, then he to the very poor person on this planet, he could be seen to be extremely rich. Like I was in Mayapur a few years ago, and with Mohini, and she has friends at the Rajapur temple with all the pujaris there, and a lot of the devotees who live and serve in the Rajapur temple are they're not rich at all. And I went to one program in one of the temple president's house, and and it's it's just a typical residence of a Mayapur Vasi who is just dirt floors and just a concrete building with no windows in it, and nobody has his family there, and they're living very happily, and they had a little daughter, a couple daughters, and one of them was very young, and Mohini was really friendly with her. They had a nice, good relationship, and she went over the house one day, and the little girl was making dolls out of anything she could find, and what Mohini described as trash, like pieces of paper or sticks of wood, and she was making dolls and toys out of those, what we would consider trash, and she was playing happily with them, and but to us in the United States, we have most people have a decent way of living, and but the richest person on this planet who has yachts and super yachts and private jets and beautiful, incredible homes, to the demigods on heavenly planets, their riches are like trash. They're nothing. But in our society, they're considered, oh, he's so rich, they're so rich. But to the demigods, their stuff is like trash. So anyway, there's no material good position in the material world means you're in a bad position, a very unfortunate, poor, painful position. And so if a sannyasi wants to present material allurements to gather many disciples, yes, he can do that. But people will be attracted. But what does he have to give? Just some garbage, some trash. You give somebody a piece of gold. You make a piece of gold in your hand. What's that? It's just a cheap hunk of metal. It looks pretty, it's shiny, and it has some value by our standards, but it's just a little piece of metal. It is no more value than a piece of iron or tin or a rock. And it's, but to us in our poor position, we see it as something valuable. But yeah, so to present material allurements to attract followers, seen from the devotional point of view, is ridiculous. It's the opposite of there's no value. And there's that pastime in the Chaitanya Charitamrita when the two devotees were arguing, and one was a resident, considered to be a resident of Dwarka, and who was the one that was considered to be a resident of Vrindavan, and they were comparing the opulences between Dwarka and Vrindavan. Do you know that? It's one of them was. I'd have to look it up, but the essence of it was that the person who was more in the mood of Dwarka, he was extolling the opulence of Dwarka, where all the palaces are made of touchstone and jewels, and the devotee who was in the mood of Vrindavan was saying that even the smallest pebble of Vrindavan is worth all the palaces of the opulences of Dwarka. You'll see, if you just look it up, you'll see that pastime. And I think it's in Antya-khanda, Antya-lila, but I'm not sure. And anyways, even from a spiritual point of view, there's no opulence equal to the worship of Krishna in Vrindavan. So, as Prabhupada would say, what to speak of any opulence of the material world? There's nothing. There's nothing of value here, and but people are in such a poor, suffering condition that they can be easily fooled by some material wealth on this planet, which is nothing. And not only is it nothing, but it's contrary to actual spiritual advancement. Real Krishna conscious advancement doesn't include or depend, certainly doesn't depend on any way on material advancement, material wealth. Just like to us, the most revered devotees are the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, but to someone in the material world, who has any attraction for material goods, they would see the example of Rupa Sanatana Goswami or the 6 Goswamis as they're like homeless vagabonds. They have nothing. They live under a tree, a different tree every night. They're bums. And so of course there are other examples in Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Krishna book of devotees who have plenty of material wealth, but at the same time they're pure devotees, and they're pure devotees. So anyway, a pure devotee can be in any circumstances in the material world, whether rich or poor, by material standards, but we don't. If we have anything, we don't consider it to be our own or due to any exalted quality that we possess. Like Prabhupada, when he was in Vrindavan, just living off a few rupees a day or whatever he could collect from donations, and using everything he had to travel back and forth to Delhi and get his books printed, you would look at him and say, oh, he's a very poor man. And but he was the same then as he was when he had many disciples and he was flying on jet planes from one continent to another and getting picked up in a Rolls Royce and wearing gold watches and having giving interviews on television and meeting big important people. He was in the same mentality then as he was when he was so-called poor man in Vrindavan. So we don't take any account of material wealth one way or the other. If we have it, we can use it in Krishna's service and build monasteries and temples and use them as place for the gatherings of sincere Vaishnavas who want to come to the temple. Of course, anyone who comes to the temple is considered to be, whether they're in it for pure devotional service, they may have some Mayavadi tendencies or just materialistic tendencies, just coming to beg, get some blessings from Krishna for passing a test or getting a job or getting a good wife or whatever it is. People come to the temple for various purposes, but they're all at the end of every kirtan we go, all glories to all the Vaishnava devotees of Krishna, all glories to the assembled devotees. We say it 3 times, and that doesn't mean just the brahmacharis and renounced people who live in the temple or come to the temple all the time to make garlands. It means, or go on the altar, it means anyone who's here. Anyone who's here. And ultimately, yeah, anyone who chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra even once can be offered respects as a devotee, at least in your mind. So anyone who comes to the temple and has any kind of sincere or contaminated motive for coming to the temple is considered a devotee. And ultimately, everyone is a devotee. Everyone is a pure spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. Everyone has pure love of Krishna in their heart. But at least we should see anyone who has any tendency to chant Hare Krishna or pray to Krishna for anything, should see them as not ordinary people. They're coming to Krishna to pray. So, of course, most people can't live in the temple or won't want to live in the temple or even come regularly to the temple, but many will. But of those who want to live in the temple, this is like a famous purport in early ISKCON. The name of this purport is "No crazies, no lazies." But of course, you can't tell. Like there's many examples we've heard about, and I've seen many examples of devotees who come and live in the temple, and in the beginning they appear like who's the famous Kushakrata? Is he the one who became a famous Sanskritist and great scholar and great devotee? But in the beginning they thought, what do you think? He can't do anything, and he looks like just some crazy person. What? Crazy Peter. So you got to be careful with who you consider crazy or lazy, at least in the beginning, because you don't know. Everyone's coming out of millions of births of conditioning in the material world, and definitely at those times, almost everybody was on some kind of drugs, and people would come and stay in the temple, but you don't know who they are. You got to give people a chance, and of course it becomes a sensitive issue. Who do you give a chance to live in the temple, and who you don't? It's like a sensitive issue, but at least we should be aware of and not judge people so quickly. But, after a while you can see, if the tendencies go on and it doesn't seem to be any improvement, then, not everyone can live in the temple. And as Prabhupada said, he doesn't want it. In the beginning, it was like 26 Second Avenue. In the beginning, it was a free hotel for crazy and lazy people. It was, what was the name of those two men who were living in 26 Second Avenue in the beginning, the first two? I can't remember their names, but it was just two young men, and Prabhupada let them stay in the storefront, sleep in the storefront. But during the day, they'd go out and do whatever they were going to do. They weren't, once in a while, they'd do a little service in the temple, but they were good examples of crazy, lazy people who were just taking advantage of a free hotel. So Prabhupada, definitely in the beginning, he was extremely lenient about who could stay in the temple.
I think he was smoking also.
Yeah, just doing whatever they were going to do. Didn't they smoke in the temple once or something? And then Prabhupada said they had to leave. So they had to leave, and they left. And then one of them came back and was knocking on the door and wanted to come in. And Prabhupada said, he can't come in unless he gives up his marijuana. And they told him that. And then, so he went away because he didn't want to give up marijuana. And there was so many examples of devotees like that over the years. So anyway, it's a sensitive thing, but the general principle is, and we can't be too strict, but things have become more and more strict over the years, but still we have to be kind of cautious about how we apply that principle. Otherwise we lose people who are potential future kushakratas or big book distributors. And anyway, it's an issue, but Prabhupada, both things are there. Both things are there. The main thing is that the temples have to be for the people who live in them. They have to be for the sincere people who are actually actively pursuing Krishna consciousness. Everyone knows what the temple is for. Everyone knows what the purpose of living in the temple is, and it has to be, and that's the criterion for who can live in the temple. So constructing temples just, it's like people build skyscrapers. Rich people, they want to have a nice skyscraper and put their name on it, or they donate millions of dollars to a hospital, and the wing of the hospital they build is the named after him, because they want to be known as a great philanthropist, and get some fame and recognition for that. And or building a big skyscraper or whatever, have a big, huge mansion. People want to be known as being rich. So that principle can't be carried over into Krishna consciousness. We build big temples like the TOVP, or so many temples in India, huge affairs, but they can't be for the aggrandizement, fame, profit, adoration, and distinction of the people who are behind building them. But if you're like one of the six Goswamis in Vrindavan, they had rich people construct temples under their guidance, or Prabhupada had many temples built or bought. At that time it was mostly just bought, like the temple in Detroit was a big, rich mansion, and Prabhupada wanted it for a temple. He said things like, nobody will come and listen, who will come and listen to a poor sannyasi sitting under a tree in Mayapur, but if we have this big temple, then many people will come. And now there's big, huge temple there, and 20 or 30,000 people a day are coming to the temple. And anyway, we all understand the principle, but we always have to be careful, because there is a tendency to become enamored of having many followers, or having getting so many donations and becoming rich by material standards, so that can act on the consciousness, unless a devotee is careful. You don't want to even, it can influence a devotee. We've also seen that in ISKCON. So it's a principle that is a very obvious principle, but Prabhupada, so over and over in his purports and his lectures, he states the obvious again and again, so that it can't be misunderstood. Like the purports like this are extremely clear, and you can't say, nobody can read this purport or this verse and say, oh well, it says that, but it doesn't really mean that. It can't be that strict. But Prabhupada and Srila Vyasadeva, they say exactly what they mean, and they don't leave anything to interpretation. Of course, everyone always, the tendency of the conditioned soul is always to interpret, and people can interpret anything if they're big enough rascals, and there are so many big enough rascals in the material world, so things do get misused and interpreted in strong ways, in many ways, but the actual words are right there on the page, and and they can't be misunderstood. Like I was coming to the temple as a guest frequently, and all the devotees knew me, but when they bought, and I was thinking, I'd come to the temple and everybody liked me, and I'd be thinking, oh, I'm pretty cool devotee, and devotees like me. And then one day, when they first bought this building, but the devotees weren't living in it yet, but the temple president and some of his, physically gifted carpentry men were doing all kinds of reconstruction, and they were sanding and refinishing all the halls and all the woodwork in the whole building. I came one day when they were doing that, and the temple president then was Adikeshwar, and he was really good. But he's very tough, and they knew I came in, and I heard him say to one of the other brahmacharis who was working with him, he said, tell him in no uncertain terms that if he's not here to work, then he should leave. And it was pretty clear, and they didn't have to tell me, because I heard him say that, and I think they did come down and talk to me and say something like that. But it's like that. Prabhupada's purports are like that. It's very straightforward in no uncertain terms. That means direct. Like, this is what I say, and this is what I mean. And don't try to wiggle out of it, or equivocate, or misinterpret, or anything. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. And it's right there in black and white on the page. And these are the law books of mankind for the next 10,000 years. So don't try to mess around with it. And anyway, no crazies, no lazies is the affectionate name of this famous purport. Temples and monasteries should be used exclusively by devotees who are serious about spiritual advancement in Krishna consciousness. There's only one purpose for this temple. The temple, there's so many activities that go on in this temple, but there's only one purpose. The purpose is to chant Hare Krishna and to please serve Radha Gopi Vallabha and to spread Krishna consciousness. There's only one purpose. And I was thinking about chanting japa today, and chanting in Hare Krishna and Kirtan, and it's been 55 years since I started chanting Hare Krishna seriously, or with any kind of intention to become spiritually advanced. But I heard myself chanting today, and this is a recent, the thing that I'm noticing more and more. When I hear myself chanting, and I'm aware of my consciousness while I chant, that I'm chanting the same 3 words, the same Hare Krishna mantra for quite a while now. But I don't know anything about the Hare Krishna mantra, Maha Mantra. I'm saying the words, I'm repeating the words, but what do I know about Krishna? What do I really understand about Krishna? What do I really understand about surrender to Krishna? So this is Krishna consciousness is very easy to begin, and it's very simple to. It's not hard to understand, at least at the most basic level, even in the very beginning. But it's not. One chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra contains all the depths, all the infinite Krishna consciousness that can be had in one name of Krishna or one mantra of Krishna, but we're just on the beginning shore of the ocean of devotional service to Krishna consciousness, of Krishna consciousness. We've made a beginning, and we are sincere devotees, and but we're just at the beginning. So we have to pursue it in that mood. Okay, so I'll stop there. Any questions or comments? Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare,
ये किसका है मोबाइल?
कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमामि विश्वबालाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते राधानाथ समर्पयामि नमामि विश्वपते कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते मुकुन्दान्त समर्पयामि नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी विचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाशंदेशितानि जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभुनित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत राधा शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम हरे हरे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram 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 Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Ram Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Hare